Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard this week. So I did something different this past Monday. I actually videoed the entire session, well, except for about 30 seconds there. That was a pretty important 30 seconds, but anyway. And I posted that on my YouTube channel under episodes. And so today I'm going to dig into what turned out to be a really significant encounter in that episode, because there's a lot going on there, and I'm gonna hit on it pretty quick and high level this video, but I'm probably going to revisit it for some particular elements, but I'm going to point out those elements as I go through it here. And then in the comments here, I will post a direct link to that encounter. It's technically the second encounter of the episode. The first one ended up being a non-encounter. The party just hid and let the ogres walk by, which is fine. That's perfect. But anyway, it's a time stamped at 12 minutes there in the video. And I'll post in the link the timestamp direct link to it. So there are things going into this that I'm going to share with you that the PCs did not know coming into this encounter, and that happens a lot, right? Like a lot of times. I mean, I guess almost every encounter, the DM has information that is not currently available to the PCs, and it just depends upon what the nature of the encounter is, how pivotal that is, and how important it is to the adventure. So the first thing is, so here's the situation. The PCs are heading down this ever narrowing pathway, but on the left there are some cliffs, and on the right there is a rocky shoreline, waves crashing in on this rocky shore. And then there on this, currently we're at a point where it's about 20 feet. It's going to, you can see that it gets progressively narrower. Right. Okay, so the reason I think this is a really good encounter to take a look at is you really see what it is like to run under Theater of the Mind. And I know that a lot of people who came into D&D after like 2002-ish don't have a lot of experience with Theater of the Mind, and they don't really understand what a difference that makes. They just think, oh well, no, I would much rather have a diagram, like have a board where I can actually immediately visualize what's going on instead of having to imagine everything. And that's not really the either or that's involved in Theater of the Mind, right? So if you look at this video and you look at the this encounter in particular, you'll see that it rolls out much more conversational than if we were using battle maps, miniatures on a battle map. It's much more of just the DM, me, and the players talking and describing what's going on. There's not really, there's no one getting up and getting over a board and maneuvering pieces, right? It's the only item maneuvering that goes on is the die rolls involved. And so to that effect, it is much more collaborative storytelling than using battle maps. It is an order of magnitude away from being a board game, the way that a lot of D&D games are played. And you may like that or you may not like that. But this is a good example, this particular encounter, of how different using a battle map is from Theater of the Mind. The Theater of the Mind also, like in this particular encounter, it allows us to do some things that would be if not impossible, very, very difficult to do with battle maps. So in particular, the scope of the encounter, right? We're talking about an area that's, over 150 feet wide. We've got the shoreline, and then some amount of water that would need to be included in the battle map in case PCs wanted to use that water in some strategic way. And then we've got the 40 feet, the 20-foot wide path that they're on that expands to 40 feet behind us. We've got an elevation change that is hard to convey in battle maps, right? Battle maps are notorious for having difficulty conveying the elements of in a 3D situation, and here it's very important because on the cliff there are scouts with longbows who are currently back, but they're going to be moving up, shooting, and moving back each turn until the PCs do something about that. Then we have 24 opponents, right? We have 24 opponents. And simply placing them on a battle map is going to be a time-consuming, tedious challenge, right? Actually, so I guess we actually have 30 combatants. We have well, no, 36, because there are 42 total combatants in this. 42 because 12 of the opponents have familiars, have owl familiars, and one of the PCs do. So yeah, so they're just I mean, trying to granularly manage 43 tokens on a battle map. Man, who wants? I don't know. I guess there are people who prefer that, but particularly when you see the way this encounter rolls out, now the solution to that, right, is don't make encounters with 42 participants, right? If you're going to use a battle map, but that does constrain you on what you can do as from a storytelling standpoint, right? It does mean that you can't have this encounter in a battle map, because it would consume the entire 4 hours of your session, because you would have 43 tokens, 6 players and the DM all operating around that battle map. You would have the DM forced to make very detailed strategic decisions about the placement of tokens relative to rocks and other terrains, instead of just saying, yeah, they're hidden. Yeah. And the DM would have to make other decisions, like when to reveal the when to put the tokens on the map, right? Or even the fact that coming into the encounter and the players look over there and say, man, he's got a lot of miniatures out there. How is it there's just one guy standing in front of us, right? And so just managing the information flow changes in a battle map situation compared to Theater of the Mind. So anyway, so yeah, if you look at this, you'll see that it's much more conversational, much more of a story building event, and not a game board event. The feel of the game is much more of what you would find in like a writer's room, like where a staff of writers are collaborating to create an episode of a television show or whatever, and much less like players who are showing up to a chess match or some other strategy game, right? It's just a completely different feel to the game when you're using Theater of the Mind, at least using it the way I do, which I think is the right way. I may be wrong. All right, so some other important things about this. We can get past the Theater of the Mind. This is what we call in Dimgaard a special encounter, right? So this was not written into the actual text of the adventure we're preparing. And so the nature of this special encounter is we have PCs who have a history of doing something that is going to be an affront to a significant population. So, you know, think of it like in this particular case, at this point in the last month of game time, the PCs have killed 3 different wormlings. They killed a deep dragon wormling, they killed a white dragon wormling, and they killed a bronze dragon wormling. So at that point, right, like throughout Dimgaard, there are people who have a strong affinity for dragonkin. Either they have some sort of dragon lineage in their own history, or at least think they do. Like that could be a matter of family legend that, you know, oh yeah, great grandma Ethel slept with a shape change dragon, and that's why we have so many magic initiates in our family line, right? Whatever. And that may or may not be true, but the current generation believes that to be true. Anyway, so there is this population of people who have an affinity for dragonkin, even though the one true faith is generally oppressive of dragonkin, and they consider dragons to be fantastic creatures that are inherently corrupting for the most part. Bahamut, the followers of Bahamut, have managed to establish within the one true faith that he's a legitimate intercessor. And so, but that there are still schisms that evolve around. There's still a lot of bias against even followers of Bahamut within. Anyway, so what we have here is, over the course of the past month, the PCs have become relatively famous as they have killed these 3 dragons. And I mean, you can think about that, like you're in some moderate sized town, and word comes up of these adventurers who have revealed and then killed a true dragon after, for the past several thousand years, true dragons were considered almost mythology within. And here you are, like someone who is very worshipful of dragons. So anyway, as a result of that, this underclass, this secret population of Dracophiles, I guess you would call them, they say, we got to do something about this. These people are going out and eliminating these precious, glorious creatures after we've waited for generations to have them actually manifest. So that's the special encounter. You can actually reflavor this special encounter for other situations too. Anytime that the PCs have established a history of targeting some element. So, like for example, there's a similar group of underclass who have an affinity for Fae, right? And so if this campaign had involved the PCs killing, one Fae after another, then you could use the same special encounter tailored to that particular group of PCs. And that's the way the special encounters work, right? In Dimgaard I say we, it's almost always me. I create them for a particular group of players or PCs that are running in the campaign. I will and then I will substitute that for one of the encounters, or if it's a session that's light like maybe if it's a session that only has 6 encounters in the adventuring day, I can add it in there. Very often I will have it prepared and then have it with me as an optional encounter if I have time, because a lot of these things, you can get caught up in it, and just what is actually prepared within the adventure is. But this case, I really wanted to expose the players to this special encounter, so I replaced one of the early encounters in the session with this. But the encounter I replaced was a random event, right? Like there were supposed to be 2 random events coming into the actual heart, the meat of the adventure, and instead I only had the ogre encounter, which they avoided, and so there was room for this special encounter. All right, so that was this is an example of special. It's a good example of what special encounters are, how they work, and why I use it. So, like, coming out of this encounter, when this was done, right, the players have a real sincere belief, that hey, we are affecting things, right? We're not just experiencing this stuff. This stuff is experiencing us too. Like, this was a response by the world to what we are doing, right? So that the players understand that yeah, their PCs are significant and doing things that are affecting the Dimgaard world, and that's important. This one also has, so I'm just going to hit on these pretty quickly. So it's an example where there's some pretty significant information that is set up to be hidden from the players. Like, in particular, was one thug steps out, says, "You are a bunch of bad people who've been killing dragons, and I'm here to do something about it." The PCs, are like, "Well, you're just one guy, man," and not knowing that, yeah, hidden in the rocks behind him are another 20, and then on the rocks above him are another 6, right, or something like that. Which is, so they like, yeah, we're just gonna tweak this thug and move on, and then yeah, an hour and a half later, we've had 2 deaths and another one unconscious. I guess technically we had 3 deaths, because the Drake Warden's Drake was killed too. But when the Drake is killed, it just disappears, and she can resummon it by using a spell slot. But that does bring me to another important thing. One of the things that is a big adjustment for players coming into Dimgaard is how deadly the combat encounters are, right? Like, and here we have one. Like, this is the first. Like, they had the ogre encounter, and then this was the first real that they avoided, and then this was the first real encounter. So this is the first encounter of the session, which means then that the PCs have all of their resources available, right? And this stats out, like, if you sit down with the encounter building guidelines, this stats out as a medium encounter according to the XP budgets involved. But at the end, we had 2 PCs dead, and another one unconscious, right? And the Drake Warden had her Drake killed twice over the course of the encounter. So very, 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 you could say, I guess difficult is the word, right? And the reason it's difficult is not because Dimgaard uses overpowered creatures, right? Like it's not like, oh well, they face this. It's because Dimgaard understands the mechanics involved of combat and leverages those mechanics in ways that are fair, but definitely hard for the PCs to deal with. So in this particular, and Dimgaard is like in the metagame, we are very careful to understand what is the nature of the combat, what is the element that we are challenging. This comes from our experience in World of Warcraft in particular. So in a set piece encounter, you want to know this is what's being challenged, right? Is it the ability of the party to deal out a focused amount of damage in a short amount of time? Is it the ability of the party to withstand an incoming wave of damage, recover, and then continue the battle? In this particular case, the PCs are under a huge action economy deficit, right? For every one action that the PCs are taking, the enemies are taking 6. Make that 8 because there are spellcasters in the group that have familiars. So when you look at that and you say, okay, your action economy is 1 to 8, right? Well, I guess it'd be slightly less than that because of the Drake Warden's Drake, and then the PC's Owl familiar as well. But it's definitely, it is a huge action economy deficit, and we're looking at the ways the party has to overcome that, and so as the presenter, right, I understand that too, right? So coming into this, I knew what the PCs had to even out that action economy. In particular, they have a sorcerer who has a very powerful AOE spells, in particular Fireball. He is known to have Fireball. He uses Fireball in just these type of situations. The bad guys know that too, and so if you look at the first 2 rounds of combat, they are extremely focused on taking that sorcerer and neutralizing him as a source of someone who could even out their advantage, right? But that does bring up another point, right? About this isn't particular to Dimgaard, but it is something that I see a lot, right? So it's important to present the opponents authentically, right? So the reason I'm reminded of that here is, so the bad guys, or I don't know, maybe they're bad, that the opponents of the PCs, they know that Boom Boom, the Aasimar Sorlock, it has Fireball and a willingness to use it. So they are like, we need to take out that Sorlock. And so that he is the first one to go down, right? And so now he's making death saves, right? However, from the NPC's perspective, people don't make death saves, right? Only PCs and very significant NPCs make death saves, right? So from their perspective, they're like, okay, we just magic missiled him down, he is dead, right? I, as a DM, know that's not the case, right? I, as a DM, know that, oh yeah, the PCs, they're going to get Boom Boom back up as soon as it's someone's turn, and he'll be able to get off his Fireball, right? I can't use that information I have as a DM to skew the decisions that the NPCs are making based upon their information set, right? So now what then happens is, sure enough, someone gets a potion to Boom Boom. He comes up. Then another NPC, they take down another PC, the frontline fighter. But this time, right now, they know that. Now they're like, oh, wait a second, these people don't die whenever they go down. So now that when they take him down, what takes him down is there are some acolytes in the group who cast sacred flame on them, and there are 6 of them, and like 2 or 3 into it, I forget. I'd have to go back and watch the video to clarify, but it's 2 or 3 of them into it. Render him unconscious. But now the NPCs know, it's like, yeah, he's unconscious, and we think he should be dead, but these villains, they have some means of avoiding death. So we need to make sure this one's dead. So the rest of that group go ahead and drop their sacred flames on the lizard folk, on Sot. And sure enough, that does kill him. That imposes the 3 failed death saves to actually kill him, right? But that's so far, within the context of the game and the encounter and the story building, the world building, that's a completely fair thing, right? It would have been unfair if in the opening round, whenever they render Boom Boom unconscious, if the bad guy said, okay, we've rendered him unconscious, but let's go ahead and hit him with these other 3 magic missiles so that we know that he's dead, right? That would not be fair, because the NPCs they've never seen anyone be reduced to 0 hit points with a range or spell and not be dead, right? They have to assume that, yeah, he's dead, until they give him a potion and bring him back up. And then once that happens, they can make they're not stupid. They realize, oh my God, these creatures do not die when we render them unconscious. We have to go in and really make sure that they're dead. And so then they begin to do that. Let's see, what else do we want to do about that? Oh yeah, so something else that we couldn't have done on a battle map is this really gets split. This gets bifurcated into 2 combats, right? So like I said, up on top of the cliffs, there are scouts, archers, who, when combat begins, they move over, shoot, and move back, right? And so first of all, that's such a wide area that to put that on a battle map would have just been physically difficult. Like even on a large game table, if you look at 5-foot squares and you're like, okay, 1-inch squares being 5 feet, you've got to accommodate that level of geography in your battle area. You've got to have like a 3-foot by 3-foot battle map. And so, that's not an easy thing to do. You can place 3D terrain, I guess. If you have that available, that might be a way to go but that's rare for D&D games. But anyway, and then as it progresses, right? So Lyra sends her Drake up to engage those 6 archers, and then she's going to climb on up the cliff she's a tabaxi, so she has a climb speed, and help with that. So really we have like a little combat going on between the tabaxi, Drake Warden, and the 6 archers, and then we have the rest of the big group down here slugging it out on the coastal flatland. And managing that in a battle map, I would not want to do it. I just would not want to do it. I would have to completely restructure the entire encounter to account for the constraints of a battle map. Okay, so I guess I'm kind of wandering around here following my notes. So like I said, it's a big adjustment for how hard it is in Dimgaard, like how frequently that PCs die. But within Dimgaard, we also death is not the unrecoverable traumatic event that it is in a lot of games, right? And that's illustrated here towards the end, like after they have defeated the opponents and they're like into the recovery phase, because we had 2 dead PCs, but there were plenty of revivifies around, and really, what else do you have to spend those 300 gold pieces worth of diamonds on than revivifies? So it's a really good use of excess wealth, which is a problem in 5th edition, and it also changed. So in 5th edition, there is a real problem in that in combat healing is inconsequential, which then makes the healer in the party inconsequential, right? So it can be really frustrating to players who come from an environment where you had the tank, the healer, and the 3 DPS, and the healer was just really a key element. And then in 5th edition, it's like, well, yeah, in combat healing is almost always a bad choice. You should always, everyone should be dealing damage as much as possible, as fast as possible. And then once the combat is over, then we can heal. And so there are so many mechanisms built into 5th edition that don't require an actual healer, like spending hit dice and the availability of common potions of healing, right? And then like specific class traits like second wind, that it can be really disappointing to players who play healers coming into 5th edition. They feel like that the role that they gravitate towards, that they really enjoy playing, coming out of particularly out of MMOs, but even other tabletop RPGs, there's a real need for in-combat healing. It's just not there in 5th edition, and so that can be a hard thing. But because death recovery is so important, that is something that really only a few classes can do, and they're the same classes. It aligns very well with the classes that would be traditionally the healers, the clerics, and druids, and most paladins, some artificers, and some sorcerers, right? Like healing focused sorcerers can get revivify. And by making revivify so important, and so like the need to use it, we restore that need for at least 1 or 2 people in the party who can cast revivify, or if not cast it, at least activate a scroll off of it. That's what happens here. Is the guy who's a 1st level artificer has a scroll of revivify that he has to revivify in order to get the celestial warlock, who's a favored soul. Is that what it's called? I think it's called divine soul sorcerer, to get him back up so that he can use his actual revivify spell to then bring Sot back. And it's all got to be done, within a minute of the end of combat there. So, there's a little bit of urgency, a little bit of tension building there. let's see, what else do we have in this encounter? Yeah, so we see here how scaling works. So the way that this is scaled is this encounter is appropriate for 5th, 6th, or 7th level characters, maybe even 4th. I don't know. I have to go back and look that up, but I know it's appropriate for 5th, 6th, or 7th level characters because I began wanting to place this for my party whenever they were 5th level. They're currently 7th level. So if you look at the encounter building guidelines and you say, okay, I'm dealing with CR1 4th and CR1 half creatures, right? So you got scouts and thugs, acolytes, and apprentice wizards. And you say, okay, that's the mix I'm dealing with. So for 4th level characters, you end up with 4 of those. I'm sorry, for 5th level characters, you end up with 4 of those. For 6th level, you end up with 5 of them, and for 7th level, you end up with 6 of them. So it's, scaling is very linear, very easy to roll out there. And then you just sort of pick an even distribution of those 4, and to build the party out once you have the numbers. So that's the way scaling works. It works differently for single creature encounters, but yeah, that's the way it works. Yeah, so like I said, I think that is a really illustrative encounter. I mean, obviously, from a vanity standpoint, I would like for everyone to view and comment the entire 3 hours of the session there. But at the very least, I think that a lot of people would get a lot out of jumping in at timestamp 12 there, 12 minutes, and watching that first encounter. And you can watch it on double speed and get the gist of it. And if you watch it on double speed, it's over within 30 minutes. The full encounter on regular speed lasts for an hour, which I realize is kind of an ask, but yeah, it's a really good encounter. It really demonstrates a lot of important features of 5th edition. And from that session, there were several things that came up, and enough for me to fill up the next at least few weeks of Dan on D&D. So that is the commentary I have for that particular encounter out of this past Monday session, which you can watch for yourself. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Like maybe on any of these points, you may have a differing opinion and a very reasoned and sound statement of why I'm wrong, and I would love to hear that. Right? I would love to see that. So if I'm wrong about something in this, if you're like, no, it's perfectly okay for the DM to double tap PCs, even if there's no reason to think that the NPCs would expect them to still be alive, right? Or I mean, any of the points that I've raised here. If you think, oh no, this with the right battle map, this could all be run much more efficiently and much more theatrically and much more from a story building, and explain to me how that would be the case. Like I said, I am willing to be demonstrated incorrect. I do not believe that I am the sum total of my opinions, right? And so whenever facts change, my opinions change. And if you have some elements of facts that I have not considered and believe that they should change my opinion, I legitimately hope that you will bring those to light. Post in the comments, catch me on social media. I'm gonna post my Facebook link, my Twitter handle, and my email address here as well. I'm going to start doing that on all of these videos. Love to hear from people. Also still looking for more play testers. If you want to, if you watch this adventure and think, oh yeah, that looks like that'd be fun. I would like to have something like that to present to my players, and then give Dan notes for his Dimgaard publishing once it's done. That would be great. Absolutely great. Get a hold of me however you can. I try to make myself infinitely accessible. And then if you find these videos helpful, interesting, please hit the like button so that the algorithm picks them up, that someone out there likes, and we'll show them to more people. And then of course, I publish I publish the Down on D&D every week. I think I'm going to start publishing my Monday sessions every week as well, lightly edited. So you can subscribe to the channel and not miss any of those. So until next week, I hope things go great for you this week.